Hi, let's now start with tkinter. So tkinter is the module in Python which comes along with the standard library. You don't have to install it separately. So tkinter will help in designing GUIs, graphical user interfaces. Earlier you have seen graphics already. We have seen using Turtle, and Turtle is implemented using tkinter. For every method that you have used in Turtle, it will call the methods of tkinter. Therefore, tkinter is more powerful than Turtle. And one more thing, actually, tkinter is not uh, designed, or it is not an idea from Python. So what people have done is, earlier there used to be a language called TCL programming language. No one is using it now. I have learned it when I was doing my masters. I have used in order to do a project, in order to build the GUI. I have used TCL TK. So TCL is a programming language, very old. No one is using it. And now inside TCL programming language, there is a special toolkit called TK. Now this TK was used for GUIs. Now while designing TK, they have actually copied everything from TCL TK. So what I mean to say is when they have designed tkinter, everything has been copied from TCL TK. So if you are looking at the documentation of tkinter, you can look at it. If you are actually, I'm not going to teach all the methods available in TCL in tkinter in the course, but I'm going to show you some of the methods. But if you want to know more about the methods and how many methods are available and what you can do with TCL tkinter, you can read the documentation of tkinter, not a problem. But even even simpler and more clearer documentation is TCL TK. So what I mean to say is, since they have taken everything from TCL TK, all the methods or all the features of tkinter are already there in TCL TK, and that documentation is even better. So I am referring that documentation instead of referring the tkinter documentation. You can do anything. You can either use tkinter documentation or TCL TK documentation. And you know the history of GUI, right? Graphical user interface. Initially, our operating systems does not have these GUIs. They are all command line interfaces. You have to type something at the command line in order to get something done. Later, the first commercially available graphical user interface operating system was Mac Lisa, and then Windows have copied from Mac Lisa. So there was a battle also. You can read about it, that between Apple and Windows there was a battle, and I don't know exactly who won. I think Apple has won the battle, legal battle, that they have copied it. I don't know exactly the details. You read about it. So basically, what I mean to say is TCL, TK, and tkinter and other modern programming languages. Uh, every modern programming language has a library which is used for GUIs. And coming to Python, the most popular library for GUIs is tkinter, and it comes along with the standard library, so you don't have to install it. So we are using it, and we will do a lot of programs on it. So initially, if you don't find it very easy, don't just hang on. As we do more and more examples, it will be easier. Okay. So now let's try to do a small program. Let's try to create a small window and a label. So you can create buttons, you can create labels, you can create text boxes, and you can see, you can also specify what happens on click of a button. All these things you can do in TK. It will be interesting. So first let's import tkinter. It is already there installed, so that is why it is not showing any red bulb. It is already there. Let's create a window. So if I say tcl.tk, sorry, tkinter.tk. So see, since I have worked on TCL TK more than this, I'm getting TCL again and again, but you try to remember that it is tkinter. So tkinter.tk, if I write like this, a window will be created. If I run it, you are not going to see anything on the screen because the window has been created and it disappeared. So exactly like how you have done with screen in Turtle, you have to write the same thing here. So here you have to write main loop, windows.main loop. So window.main loop. Now this window.main loop has to be at the end, and whatever you want to do, you can do it in between. Okay. So this is the window we have created. Now the window is visible. Now close it. You can specify the size to the window. So what happens is when you put lot of buttons, lot of labels, lot of text inputs, our window is automatically going to expand. But then you can also specify what is the min size. Max size depends on how many elements you put in it. It is automatically going to expand. So min size, you can specify what is the width and what is the height. Just like how you have specified it for screen, you can do the same. Actually, the screen that you have used in Turtle basically uses this TCL TK, sorry, tkinter TK. Now you can see that size of the window is 500, width is 500 and height is 300. Okay. Let's set a title to it. My first GUI. Now if I set the title, you can see the title on the window. Here you can see the title, my first GUI. Okay. Let's add a label. So you can add any number of labels, any number of buttons, any number of text inputs or any other elements into this components into this window. Based on the number of components, the size will automatically adjust. So we are creating a label with the text as I am a label. tkinter.label is used to create the label. And that object is my label. Nothing has happened. Why nothing has happened? Why are we not able to see label on the screen is because you have to pack it. Only after you pack it, it will be visible. So let's try to pack it. My label.pack. So now I am label is visible in the center. You can move it anywhere. And also you can specify the font for the label. Font is a tuple which is going to take the name of the font, size of the font, and also you can specify whether it is bold or italic or anything that you want. Now you can see in bold, I am label is visible. Now in the pack method, you can specify where you want to pack it, where you want it to be there in the on the screen. You can say side is left or right. You want to say whether it has to be the left side or right side. Now you can see that it is in the left side. So like this you can move basically. So these are all the things that we are going to see. We are going to move the labels, we are going to move the buttons, text inputs, everything, and it will be interesting. Okay. Okay, thank you. Let's try to add a button. So basically this label, TK, all these are actually present inside the tkinter module. So instead of always writing tkinter, let's try to import it as star. Okay. From tkinter, import star. Then all the classes will be imported so that we don't have to write tkinter dot always, because we are going to use a lot of them. So we don't want to write always tkinter dot label and all. That is why we are using it. Now let's create a button. So we are creating a new button, and it is having a text argument. See, you have to know all this by reading the documentation. I read the documentation, I'm directly doing it. Okay, so if you have any doubt, read the documentation. So text equal to click me. Now, no, don't put back. So now try to run it. I'm trying to add a button, but then you don't see the button here, right? Because every component has to be packed. Every after you write any pack component, if it has to appear on the screen, you have to say pack. Button dot pack. Now if you run it, you will see the output. You will see the button. You saw the button, right? Now I don't want this to be at the left and this to be here. I want them to be below each other. So let's do one thing. Let's remove this side equal to left. Now I am a label is there and button click is here. Now you can click on it, but nothing is happening. So what I want to do is I want to know that the button has been clicked. Okay. So for that, let's use a method. Let's write a method. Say button clicked. It is a method that we are writing. Okay. And we are printing button got clicked. I got clicked. Okay. Okay. Now I want this method to be called whenever this button is clicked. For that, what I can do is I can pass this method as a parameter to this method, higher order methods, event listener. So if you remember that, if you know event listeners have been used earlier. Similarly, I am using an event listener here. Whenever there is a click, whatever method I pass here to the command will be called. Button.clicked is called. Only name of the method, don't use the parenthesis, otherwise it will be called here only. So whenever this is clicked, button is clicked, then this method is called, and this method is simply printing I got clicked. Now let's try to run it and see. Now if I click on it, I got clicked. So if I'm clicking on it, I'm getting I got clicked. Okay, this is what I want. Let's try to have a box here, input box, that text box, one more component. So that user can enter some data. So whatever user has entered, we are taking it in input. Sorry, no, the input is a object of class entry. Now how to read the input, we will see that. So an entry, a text box is created. Let's pack it. Now let's see. So a text box is created here. So you can see that there is a label, there is a button, and there is a text box. Now user can enter anything on the text box. I want to capture it. How to get it? Again, you have to read the documentation about it. And the documentation says that there is a method called get. But there is a small problem here. When the user has entered some data, by that time this line will be over. This line will be executed. Immediately after creating the text box, this line is going to get executed. By that time, user will not enter anything. But what I want is user enter the text and then I want to read it. So what I will do is whenever user enters the text and clicks on the button I want to read whatever user has entered and I want to change the label. So I'm trying to somehow combine all three. Understand this? I'm going to enter user is going to enter something into the text box and then click on the button. and once the button has been clicked, I want to change the label to whatever user has entered. Okay, so for that, what we are going to do is, when the button is clicked, I will read it. I will read the text that is entered into the text box. So inside the text box, whatever is entered, I am getting it. And now I will change the label to whatever new text I got. See, initially it will be confusing and difficult to understand, but once you do some programs, which we are going to do few programs on this concept, you will be able to understand it very clearly. So now what is happened here is, whenever user has entered some text and clicked on the button, this method will be called. In this method, we are going to read whatever user has entered, and we are going to change the text. We are going to change the text of the label by using config. So on the label, config method is available. On the config, you are changing the text. Okay. Now let's try to enter something. New label. Now it has been changed. Again, try to enter something. Now it has been changed, right? So these are the basic components which we are going to work with. So there are other things that you have to learn in order to master tkinter. We will do it gradually as we do more programs on it. Okay, thank you. There are different layout managers. You have already seen pack. So what is pack trying to do is, it will try to pack the widgets on the screen one after the other in a given manner. For example, here, if you see it, pack is showing us, okay, pack is showing us the label, the button and the text box one after the other. And I didn't do any placement specification. It is by default showing it like this. If I try to pack them to the left, let us say, if I try to say side is left, in all the three places, you can see that pack automatically arranges everything from the left. So in the left there is label, button and then the text box. So it is very difficult for us to specify exactly where we want the widgets to be. For example, if I want label to be up and button to be down, and if I want the text box to be right, it doesn't happen that way. So pack is incapable of doing that. Using pack, if you are trying to pack all the widgets, then the placement will be a problem. For that, there are two more layout managers. One is called as place and the other one is called as grid. Now let's try to see place. Instead of pack, I am using place. Using place, you can specify the x coordinate and y coordinate where that particular widget has to be present. For example, if I say x equal to 0 and y equal to 0 to the label, then it is at 0 0, and I didn't specify uh, anything for the text box or the button. That is why they are not actually visible. Now you can place for button as well as entry also. Then you will see them to be placed at the point that you want. Now if I want to specify it to be at 100 and 200, x at 100 and y at 200, you will see that x is 100 and y is 200. Okay, so like that you can use place. But the problem with place is, see, yes, it can actually specify where a widget has to be present, but the problem is, if there are too many widgets, if there are 50 widgets or 100 widgets, and if you have to specify the placement for all of them, it will be very difficult. Therefore, we go for grid. Grid is one of my favorite layout manager, and grid imagines everything to be as boxes. So grid actually imagines everything to be as boxes, and each box is going to have a row number and a column number, and based on that you can place them. For example, if you go to the code and if I use, And also remember one thing, when you are using one layout manager, you cannot use other layout manager. If you are using grid, all the widgets have to use grid. You cannot combine pack and grid or place and grid together. You will get an error. So now let us say in the grid I want to place the label at column number 0 and row number 0, and the button you can copy that, and the button at 1 1, column number 1 and row number 1. Then you will see that the placement is automatically done and you are not worried about the x and y coordinates. You are actually worried about the boxes, which is much more simpler compared to working with the x and y coordinates. Column number 2 and row number 2. Now if you observe it, it is at 0 0, it is at 1 1, and it is at 2 2, right? So this is how you can use the layout manager grid. We are going to use grid in our programs. Now let us try to add a new button. So already we have a label, we have a button, and we have an entry. Let us try to add a new button, and I want the positions like this, okay, in the grid. Then how can you do that? You can pause the video and try it on your own. It is very simple. Let's create a new button. Let's create a new button. And let's place it on the grid at the position 0 row and column number 2. Now you can see that new button is added at 0 row and column number 0 1 2, but we want this text box to be here, okay, to be in the next column in the same row. So let's change it. Column number 3 to the entry. Now you can see that this is the layout that we wanted and we got it, okay. So now let's try to add some padding. So how can we add padding is, we can use pad x and pad y in the config. So we can add it to the window or we can add it to the individual widgets. For example, to the window, if I add config, window.config, how do I know this method? I read the documentation. You have to read the documentation to understand what are the methods available on window, okay. So window, so pad x equal to 100 and pad y equal to 200. If you see it, then automatically padding is going to be added. So something to the x and something to the y, like 100 and 200. Now we can do the same for any of these widgets individually. Let's see that. Now to the label we are adding padding. Pad y equal to 20 and pad x equal to 20. Then you can see that around the label there is some space created which is padding here, okay. I hope you are able to see the spacing here. So this is how you can use grid. So we are going to use grid in all our programs from now on. We are not going to use pack or place. It is very difficult to work with them. So grid is better than them. So using grid, you can actually place the items in boxes, and the how you specify the boxes by giving the row number and column number, which is much easier than giving x coordinate and y coordinate. Okay, thank you.